This cyberpunk side quest exposes how pride turns strength into blindness and how arrogance makes men forget the value of a life. Every city celebrates its champions, but in Cyberpunk, in Night City, they just fall faster. But maybe that's true in our world too. This is Logan Garcia, a heavyweight boxer, a champion, and now he's the owner of the Animals Fight Club. He was once a fighter with real talent. Now he's a man drunk on power and ego. He called it strength, but what he really loved was control. And the louder the crowd cheered, the less they saw anyone else as human. To him, people were just props in the story of his greatness. So one day, during a sparring match, his pride had crossed the line. He hit Lenny Steiner with a 1-2 combo that dented the side of his skull. And when the boys stopped moving, Logan didn't call for help. He dumped his body in the bay with a cinder block tied to his neck. It was like the weight dragging humanity under. But the ripples didn't stop with him. They reached the shore where Monica Steiner, that was Lenny's mom, she was still fighting to keep her son's name above water. See, Monica, she didn't have money, or power, or even muscle for that matter. All she had was love. And when the world took from her what she loved the most, her baby boy, I'm telling you, that love twisted. It became rage, it became vengeance, and then the unbearable realization that the world could take her son's life and feel nothing. Because there's a moment that every parent fears the most, that the world could take their child and feel nothing. And when it does, something inside of you breaks that never heals. So Monica took action. She hired El Capitan, and he called V. Because when justice refuses to listen, grief starts looking for its own language. Ask yourself, how far would you go if someone you love was thrown away like that? If the world just turned its back on him and then called it justice? And then when you find Logan, he doesn't run. He doesn't apologize either. He just looks you dead in the eye and says the weak die and the strong survive. So I showed him what survival really costs. Yeah, I pulled the trigger, not out of anger, but out of understanding. Because sometimes men like Logan, they don't fear death. What they really fear is the moment they finally see themselves. But the truth is, people who talk like that, that's not the tough guy. What they really are is afraid. Afraid of being seen as small. Afraid of losing control. Afraid of being forgotten. See, they hide that fear behind arrogance because it's easier to look powerful than it is to admit that you're scared. And quite frankly, that's probably something we've all done in smaller ways, especially when our pride feels threatened. In our world, you don't need a fight club to see what pride looks like. You see it at home, in the parent who can't say I'm sorry, or the son who refuses to ask for help. We call it strength, but really, it's fear. Fear of being seen as weak. And sometimes, that fear breaks more families than failure ever could. That's not leadership. That's arrogance, disguised as excellence. You know, they say pride comes before the fall, but maybe it's simpler than that. You call it pride. I call it math. Every selfish choice, every moment you look away, every person you step on, it all adds up. And one day, the balance comes due. Maybe you've had that moment when someone disrespects you and pride starts whispering in your ear. But then you look beside you and you see your kids watching. And suddenly, walking away doesn't feel weak. It feels right. If you ask me, that's the real tough guy. And Monica, she wanted justice. Logan, he wanted respect. And in the end, neither of them got peace. Because pride doesn't end with victory, it ends with emptiness. So sometime later, the Animals gang found out that Monica had ordered the hit. They hunted her down, killed her and her friend under an overpass. So she successfully avenged her son, but only to die for it. And the crazy thing is, the world didn't change, it just looked away. Logan Garcia was a boxer, but his real fight was with himself. He spent his whole life proving he was strong, until strength became a mask that he couldn't take off. And maybe that's the real tragedy. Not that he fell, but that he never looked down until it was too late. We all know someone like that. Someone so afraid of being seen as weak that they forget what real strength looks like. Maybe we've even been that person. So let me ask you something. If someone you love was thrown away like Lenny, like they were nothing, would you forgive? Or would you burn the world down to make it feel your pain? If it were me, I'd be lying if I said I wouldn't want to burn the world down. I'd want them to feel what I feel, to know the cost of taking someone from me. But then, the other truth hits. The faces that depend on you. The people who would be left holding the pieces. Revenge isn't a clean line. It's a choice that costs other lives too. So yeah, in the heat of it, I want to make them pay. But then I'd have to live with what that made me and who I lost along the way. So I guess that's the real question. Is justice worth the damage it does to the people you love? Or do you carry that pain and try to keep living for them? No judgment here. Drop your take below. Stay tuned next week for another Ghost in Night City.